Hello and welcome back to our channel. My name is Beatrice and I am the owner at Slidesho, a presentation design agency based in Sydney. In today's video, I would like to share with you my top 8 tips for creating a successful PowerPoint presentation. So tip number 1 is work from a template. If you work for an organization, you'll know about the importance of working with a template. So something that's already been designed specifically for your business. It's already got all your corporate colors, your fonts, and several layouts. So it will save you a lot of time and it will also ensure consistency. Tip number 2 is to stay on brand. So again, something that goes hand in hand with the template, it is crucial that you stay on brand. So if you are working for a business, you need to make sure that everything is consistent so that all your documents look cohesive, they all look professional, they look like they've all come from the same organization. So staying on brand, that can also mean using specific fonts, using a specific color palette, and there might be other elements that are part of the branding. So sometimes shapes, certain shapes, different types of photography, etc. You need to keep that in mind. So tip number 3 is to limit your text. I've spoken about this quite a number of times. Limiting your text is of course very important, so trying to keep everything in the notes section as much as possible and condensing the information that your audience will be looking at, because you don't want to overwhelm them with too much text. You don't want them to sit there trying to read what's on the slide rather than listening to you while you're presenting. Tip number 4, don't forget layout and formatting, which is very important. So the bulk of your presentation, making sure that when you're going through the presentation that everything is aligned. You may want to use the guide so that you've got margins all the way around the slide, and that also creates white space, which is very important visually to make things clearer. Also having all the headings in exactly the same spot so that not jumping around from one slide to the next slide. So they're little things, but they are important. Making sure that if you're using, for example, a red, and you have a red in your color palette, that you always use the same red, that you're not jumping around using different colors. And once you've gone through the whole presentation, also don't forget to do a spell check, which is something that often tends to be forgotten, and then you realize when you're presenting and there's the typo projected, on the monitor for everyone to see. So go through your presentation and do a spell check as well. Tip number 5 is to use high quality graphics. There's nothing worse than using tiny images that are pixelated. Those days are gone. We have so many resources available to us that there's really no excuse to be using poor imagery. You can of course purchase images from photo stock libraries, or there are actually quite a number of free libraries where you can download lots and lots of photographs that are beautiful. So just ensure that you go through the presentation, make sure that the photos that are there are actually adding to the presentation and not detracting from it. Now tip number 6 actually ties in with tip number 3 about condensing text, and that is to use the speaker notes. I have also spoken about the speaker notes in a previous video and tutorial, so you may want to refer to that. I will try and link to it below as well in the notes. So essentially what you want to do is, as I mentioned before, is not have too much information on the actual slides, but rather all those things that are there to really remind you what you need to say, that needs to be moved into the notes section. You can refer to the notes while you're presenting, but your audience doesn't have to be distracted by all of that text. Tip number 7 is to keep it clean and simple, as clean as possible. So really removing things that add clutter to the slide. So they can be subtle things. Maybe it's shading. Maybe you've decided to put shading on everything, so that can add visual clutter. Having too many lines, you may not need lines to separate things on the slide. That can often add clutter to the slide. So go through and just think about elements that may not actually be adding anything of benefit to the presentation. And finally, tip number 8 is remember your audience. So really think about who you're going to be presenting to. If you're presenting to a group of business people, it's very different to if you're presenting at a university to students. So really always have that in the back of your mind when you're putting together the presentation. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to our channel. You may also want to share it with someone that might benefit from it, and give it a big thumbs up. Also, don't forget to leave some comments. If you've got any suggestions for future videos, then you're welcome to leave them there. Thank you.